The door is already closed. Not slammed, not locked, just closed enough that the hallway noise from the Fox lot can't get in. Lowe's Angels, early 1943. Afternoon light presses against the tall windows, filtered through heavy studio blinds that haven't been adjusted since morning. The room smells faintly of cigarettes and paper, ink, carbon copies, the residue of decisions that don't leave a paper trail. A long conference table, polished, too polished, it reflects faces back at themselves in dull, warped shapes. Daryl F. Zanuck is seated near the head, jacket off, sleeves rolled just enough to suggest confidence, not fatigue. He's holding a script, not reverently, not carelessly, like something he already owns. A few executives sit along the sides. Nobody is speaking yet. The silence isn't tense, not at first. It's the kind of silence that comes before a meeting really begins. Then Zanuck smiles. Not broadly, just enough. He glances at the pages, taps them once against the table, and says it in the tone of a man who has said similar things his entire career. A joke. Light, dry, controlled. Something about Washington thinking it can tell Hollywood how to write a war picture. Something about how pictures win wars better than memos ever could. Something that assumes agreement before it finishes forming. There's a half second where Zanuck expects a response. A chuckle. A nod. At least a smirk. Instead, nothing happens. Not immediately. The man seated across from him does not smile. He doesn't frown either. The Office of War Information Representative, his name will never appear in the trades for this meeting, keeps his hands flat on the table, one resting on a slim folder, the other folded loosely over it as if the folder might move if not held down. He looks at Zanuck not challengingly, not deferentially. Just long enough. Then he closes the folder. Not sharply, not loudly. The sound is soft, almost polite. But it lands wrong. Every head in the room feels it. The OWI man doesn't speak right away. He adjusts the folder's edge so it lines up perfectly with the table. Then he leans back slightly, not away, not forward, settling into a position that suggests the conversation has already moved past humor. His voice, when it comes, is level. Measured. Almost calm enough to miss. He doesn't mention censorship. He doesn't say ban. He doesn't threaten. He says access. He says coordination. He says timing. Words that sound administrative, harmless, technical. He mentions that certain productions move faster than others, that some studios find it easier to secure military cooperation, that endorsements, formal or informal, tend to follow patterns. No one interrupts him. Zanuck doesn't lean back, he doesn't lean forward. He stays exactly where he is. The OWI man finishes his sentence and lets it sit there, unfinished in a way that doesn't require explanation. Then he looks at the room. Once. That's all. The silence that follows is not awkward. It's surgical. Someone at the far end of the table clears their throat and stops halfway through. Another executive shifts in his chair and immediately stills, as if movement itself has become a liability. Zanuck doesn't speak. That, more than anything, changes the room. Because Daryl Zanuck always speaks. He built his power on speed, decisiveness, the ability to talk circles around hesitation. He is not known for pausing, he is not known for letting anyone else control the tempo. But now he's quiet. His fingers rest on the script, not gripping it, not releasing it. The OWI man waits. He doesn't fill the silence. He doesn't clarify. He doesn't elaborate. He has said just enough. And everyone in the room understands that whatever happens next will not be recorded, it will not be attributed, it will not be debated publicly. This is not a confrontation. It's an adjustment. Outside the room, trucks move across the lot. Assistants carry call sheets. Somewhere, a director raises his voice at a cameraman. The studio is alive, loud, confident. Inside, none of that matters. Because everyone at the table knows what this folder represents. It represents planes that won't be loaned. Locations that won't be approved. Footage that won't be cleared. A phone call that won't be returned. A delay that won't have a reason. Zanuck finally looks up, not at the OWI man but at the others. A glance. Quick, evaluating. He's reading the room the same way he's read audiences for decades. And the room is no longer with him. Not against him. Just not with him. He nods once slowly. Not in agreement. In recognition. The OWI man opens the folder again, not to show its contents, but to slide it a few inches closer to the center of the table. He doesn't push it toward Zanuck specifically. He places it where anyone could reach it. No one does. The meeting continues. On paper at least. They discuss revisions, tone, emphasis, messaging, all the words that make creative control sound collaborative. But the joke is gone. And it does not come back. When the meeting adjourns, there is no dramatic exit, no slammed chairs, no raised voices. The OWI man gathers his folder, nods politely, and leaves the way he came in. Zanuck stays seated for several seconds after the door closes. Longer than anyone expects. No one speaks until he stands. And when he does, he says only one thing. Not about the script. Not about Washington. He says they'll revisit the third act. Later. It sounds reasonable. It sounds small. But everyone in the room understands that something has shifted. Not loudly. Not publicly. Quietly. And once it has shifted, it will not shift back. Because in 1943 Hollywood, power no longer needs to announce itself. It only needs to close a folder. And wait. No memo follows the meeting. No phone call from Washington. No formal directive stamped confidential. That's what makes it work. By the next morning, the studio lot is moving like it always does. Extras line up. Wardrobe carts rattle across concrete. A production assistant runs late and breathless, clutching a revised call sheet. From the outside, nothing has changed. Inside Zanuck's office, the script is still on the desk, but it's no longer alone. It sits beneath a thin stack of notes, not instructions, suggestions, handwritten, careful, almost apologetic in tone. They don't reference the OWI, they don't need to. One note mentions realism. Another mentions tone. A third suggests considering morale. Zanuck reads them in silence. He doesn't tear them up. He doesn't call anyone in to argue. He sets them aside face down. By lunchtime, word has already traveled, not through announcements but through glances. A department head quietly asks whether the army sequence should be toned down. A producer suggests they might want to check something before locking the third act. No one says why. They don't have to. The Office of War Information does not issue orders to studios, that's the arrangement. Officially, Hollywood is voluntary, cooperative, patriotic. Unofficially, the OWI controls oxygen. Aircraft. Troops. Locations. Stock footage. And perhaps most valuable of all, timing. A picture that releases before another with the right access and the right endorsement doesn't just succeed, it defines the narrative. It becomes the version of the war audiences remember. Zanuck knows this. He helped build it. That's what makes the silence so effective. 2 days later, a call comes in, not to Zanuck directly but to an assistant producer on the film. It's brief, courteous, almost friendly. A training base previously likely to be available is now uncertain. No explanation. The assistant writes it down anyway. The next morning, the military liaison attached to another Fox production cancels a routine visit. He apologizes, scheduling issue. Nothing urgent. By the end of the week, a rival studio announces full cooperation on a war picture remarkably similar in scope, complete with access that Fox is now waiting on. Zanuck hears about it at lunch. He doesn't comment. That's the other part of this system. Everyone pretends coincidence still exists. In meetings, the tone changes subtly. Not fear. Calculation. Jokes stop landing. People speak more carefully, measuring how statements might echo beyond the room. Creative debates are reframed as logistical concerns. Can we shoot this? Becomes should we? Zanuck watches it happen in real time. This is not the first pressure he's faced. He's fought censors, advertisers, rival studios, even his own stars. He understands leverage. But this is different. Because no one is pushing him. They're just stepping back. Letting the consequences arrive on their own. One afternoon, he flips through the script again, the same pages that were on the table during the meeting. The joke he made echoes in his head, not because it was reckless but because it was accurate. Washington can't tell Hollywood what to film. Not directly. Zanuck takes a pencil and makes a small mark in the margin, not a rewrite, a question. He doesn't erase it. Yet. At another studio across town, a director boasts about how smoothly his production is going. He credits cooperation, patriotism, good relationships. Zanuck hears that word again. Relationships. That's the real currency now. Not authority. Not orders. Access. And access is quiet. By the following week, the OWI man's name never comes up again. Not once, but his presence lingers. Every delayed approval feels like a reminder. Every unreturned call carries weight. The folder doesn't need to be reopened. It's already done its work. Zanuck finally calls a meeting. Smaller this time, fewer voices. He doesn't mention the OWI. He asks questions instead. What happens if we adjust this? What if we imply instead of show? What if the audience doesn't need to see it spelled out? No one challenges him. They offer solutions. The pressure has done what pressure is meant to do. It has turned defiance into collaboration. Late that evening, after most of the lot has emptied, Zanuck stays behind. He stands by the window of his office looking out at darkened sound stages. Hollywood looks powerful at night. Immovable. But he knows better now. Power doesn't need to raise its voice. It only needs to remind you what it controls. And once you've seen that, once you've felt the room go quiet, you never joke the same way again. Because the most dangerous leverage is the kind that lets you believe you still have a choice. The revisions are never labeled revisions. They're called adjustments. Minor, sensible, necessary. When the new draft circulates, no one compares it side by side with the old one. That would require acknowledging what changed and why. Instead, they read it as if it has always been this way. The sharp edge is gone. Not removed. Blunted. Scenes that once carried ambiguity now resolve more cleanly. Doubt is replaced with resolve. The war feels clearer, simpler, safer. The picture moves forward. It secures cooperation again, not immediately, gradually, as if trust has to be rebuilt even though nothing was officially broken. No one ever says that this was the price. But everyone knows. When filming begins, uniforms arrive on time, equipment is approved, stock footage is cleared without comment. A small note from a military liaison praises the production's responsible tone. Zanuck reads it alone. He folds it once, places it in a drawer. Years later, historians will argue about whether Hollywood was coerced or complicit during the war. They will look for contracts, letters, directives. They will debate intention. They will not find the folder. They will not hear the silence. Because the most important moment left no record. No transcript. No quote. Just a closed door and a shift in posture. Zanuck never publicly complains about the OWI. He never tells the story in interviews. He doesn't need to. He's learned the lesson. Hollywood's freedom does not end when someone says no. It ends when someone stops needing to say anything at all. Other studio heads learn it too, some faster than others. The joke that once passed easily in conference rooms no longer does. Humor becomes cautious, defiance becomes strategic. The war ends. The OWI dissolves. On paper, the leverage disappears. But the method remains. Studios continue to anticipate pressure before it arrives. They preempt silence. They internalize the folder. That's the real legacy of that meeting. Not censorship. Conditioning. Years later, a younger executive asks Zanuck how to handle outside interests getting involved in production. Zanuck pauses before answering. Just long enough. He doesn't mention Washington, or the war, or the meeting. He says, pay attention to who doesn't argue with you. That's all. Because argument means negotiation. Silence means the decision has already been made. The picture is released, it performs well, it is praised, it is remembered as patriotic, effective, professional. No one ever wonders what version didn't get made. That version exists only in memory. In a joke that didn't land. In a folder that closed softly. In a room that went quiet and never fully reopened. And that's how power prefers it. Not loud enough to fight. Not visible enough to resist. Just present enough to be felt. Still. Waiting.